Rudeus Greyrat, an ordinary pathetic loser who spent 34 years being bullied, ignored, and treated like trash, finally musters the courage to do one good deed, only to die a pathetic death moments later. The anime begins with a tragic truck accident involving a man in his mid-30s and two missing high school students. As the man lies on the brink of death, he watches surgeons trying to save him but eventually loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he realizes he has been reincarnated as a baby in a new home with parents named Paul and Zenith.
しかし美人だな。ヨーロッパ系か？そんなに無防備だとお触りしちゃうぞ。
Despite his infant form, he retains the memories of his past life and is given the name Rudeus, but for short, we will call him Rudy. In this new house, Rudy often crawls around with panties on his face, which causes the maid named Lilia to believe that something evil has possessed him. The setting is a rural area with no gas or electricity. Even when Rudy falls and as his mother, Zenith, heals him using her magical abilities. This world of swords and magic fascinates Rudy, and he begins his magical exploration by reading books about a hidden treasure. With Paul reading the books to him every day, a year passes, and Rudy learns about different ways to activate magic. He tries his hand at magic for the first time by reciting the words to generate a water ball, and he succeeds. Excited by his progress, he continues practicing magic and eventually becomes able to cast spells without much focus. He also discovers that some magic is used in battles and attacks, making it easier for him to learn and increasing his magical capacity. As Rudy progresses, he moves on to intermediate magic and learns his first spell called Water Ball Splash. To his astonishment, the spell breaks through mountains and walls, displaying tremendous power. Concerned about the situation, Rudy's parents decide to hire a magic tutor for him, while Paul takes on the responsibility of teaching swordsmanship. In the rural area where they live, they were expecting an elderly magic tutor with a long beard and extensive experience. However, their expectations are shattered when they meet Roxy McGurdia, who looks like a middle school student. Initially skeptical of Rudy's ability to learn magic at such a young age, Roxy starts teaching him the 7 stages of magic, explaining the divisions of attacking, healing, and summoning. She demonstrates by attacking a tree and then healing it herself, leaving Rudy impressed. Rudy asks Roxy if chanting is necessary for magic, to which she affirms its importance. Rudy then tries using the water ball attack with chanting and discovers its increased power. Impressed by Rudy's potential, Roxy decides to train him further. The family celebrates with a welcome party for Roxy, and Rudy feels a renewed sense of purpose after his life was in shambles prior to the accident. He resolves to start his life anew as a diligent and hardworking individual. The scene shifts back to Rudy's past life, where he is lying on his bed, watching things on his laptop. Suddenly, a group of men bursts into his room and attacks him, throwing him out of the house. As Rudy walks away, he witnesses a truck losing control and heading towards 3 people standing nearby. He quickly rushes to save them. Returning to the present, Rudy wakes up from a short nap during his magic practice, hearing delightful noises instead of catching his parents in a compromising situation. To his surprise, he finds Roxy instead, who is also in the midst of puberty. 6 months have passed since then, and Rudy has made significant progress in learning intermediate magic. He attends a lecture by Roxy, who reveals herself to be a demon and shares information about a dangerous demon race called Superd, known for ruining people's lives. She warns Rudy to stay away from green-haired demons as they can be a threat to entire families. Another year goes by, and Rudy continues to work diligently to improve his magical skills and swordsmanship. He comes across some children playing, which triggers memories of his past when people used to laugh at him. Just then, Roxy arrives and enjoys the scenery, introducing Rudy to the kingdom of Renoa located beside the Red Dragon Mountain. She mentions the Renoa Magic University, where modern magic is taught. Rudy addresses Roxy as his master, but she feels guilty, believing that he will easily surpass her in magical abilities. That night, they celebrate the every 5th year tradition instead of celebrating birthdays every day. Paul, Rudy's father, gifts him a sword for future protection, while his mother gives him a book. Roxy gives him a magic stick with a red stone to amplify his magic. Rudy feels overwhelming joy, and Roxy decides to administer his graduation exam the following day, confident that he has mastered the basics. That night, Rudy reflects on his past life, feeling the weight of his previous depression and finding himself on the verge of tears. The next morning, Roxy prepares a horse for their journey outside the village for Rudy's graduation exam. Rudy is scared due to his painful past and his fear of socializing with people. However, Roxy tries to calm him down by sitting with him on the horse, and they set off, wishing everyone a good afternoon as they pass through the village. Rudy realizes that the people are loving and caring, and his fear begins to fade away. They arrive at the designated location, where Roxy will administer the exam by casting a water saint magic spell once. Rudy is then required to repeat it on his own. Roxy casts a powerful spell, resulting in heavy rainfall and thunder all around them. Unfortunately, Roxy's horse gets injured during the process. She tends to the horse while Rudy prepares for his exam. Skillfully wielding his magic stick and reciting the magic lines, he creates a massive cyclone even more impressive than Roxy's. He successfully becomes a Water Saint ranked magician. With the exam concluded, Roxy's journey with Rudy comes to an end. She is ready to return to her hometown and learn other skills. Rudy's parents approach her with tears in their eyes, offering her to stay a few more days. As a token of gratitude, she rewards Rudy with an amulet for his graduation. Emotionally touched, Rudy expresses his heartfelt appreciation to Roxy for everything, especially for helping him overcome his trauma and venture outside once again. And yes, it should be noted that a few months ago, Rudy had mischievously stolen Roxy's underwear. The next morning, Rudy asks his parents if he can go outside to play. His dad and mom suggest that he be kind to others, protect them, and even find a girlfriend. Finally free from his trauma, Rudy happily ventures outside, exploring different places and enjoying the beauty of nature. However, his joy is interrupted when he witnesses a group of children bullying another child, calling him a demon. One of the children even tries to attack with a rock. Thinking quickly, Rudy distracts them by throwing water balls, and when the child attempts to hit Rudy, he easily dodges the attack. Eventually, the bullies leave, and Rudy rushes to the bullied child's aid. To his surprise, the child turns out to be a handsome boy with green hair. Rudy recalls Roxy's theory about the dangerous supered race having green hair, but dismisses it as the boy doesn't have a red gemstone on his forehead. The child explains that he is a half-elf, which is why his hair color differs from his parents. Overwhelmed with emotions, he starts crying. Rudy consoles the boy and invites him to play together. They become fast friends, and the boy introduces himself as Sylph, which means spirit of wind. Sylph expresses his desire to learn warm water magic, and Rudy instructs him to memorize the chant so he can practice later. As Rudy walks back home, he finds his father, Paul, angry at him for punching the brat who was bullying Sylph. Without hearing Rudy's perspective, Paul starts beating him. However, Rudy cleverly responds, clearing all misunderstandings and justifying himself as always being on the side of justice. Realizing his mistake, Paul feels apologetic. Summer arrives, and Rudy gives Sylph numerous training lessons. Sylph is eager to learn about warm water magic and attempts to perform it without chanting like Rudy does. After several attempts, Sylph successfully casts the spell and becomes incredibly happy. They spend their days playing around the village, embracing their carefree lives together. However, when it starts to rain, they quickly run towards Rudy's house. Planning to take a bath, Rudy undresses promptly, expecting Sylph to do the same. To his surprise, Sylph remains in her clothes. Rudy skillfully undresses her, only to discover that Sylph is a girl. She starts crying, and Paul arrives, questioning Rudy about the situation. Rudy explains that he did it because he thought Sylph might be feeling cold. Understanding the misunderstanding, Paul suggests that Rudy apologizes to Sylph, assuring her forgiveness. In a loud voice, Rudy apologizes to Sylph, who cries even more, but this time, he acts foolishly. The next morning, Rudy and Paul engage in sword practice, and Paul advises Rudy on how to regain Sylph's friendship. Following his father's advice, Rudy successfully reunites with Sylph. Later, Zenith becomes pregnant, bringing joy to the entire family, especially Paul and Rudy, who are excited about having a sibling. Soon after, their maid, Lilia, reveals that she is also pregnant.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Curiosity fills the air, and everyone watches Paul closely. Instantly, he starts apologizing, leaving Zenith to feel deeply saddened.
全員が一瞬にして感づいた。俺の子だ。情けない。
Rudy finds himself in a complicated situation, torn between his remorseful father and his distraught mother. Additionally, Lilia considers returning to her hometown, which would take at least a month and pose risks for a newborn and a mother traveling alone. Reflecting on all the favors Lilia has done for him, Rudy decides to repay her kindness by taking her side and concocting a false story about Paul forcing Lilia to keep their sexual encounter a secret. Rudy proclaims Lilia's innocence to Zenith, who accepts Lilia as part of their family and insists she stays with them. Grateful for Rudy's support, Lilia vows to serve him as a maid and repay his favor for the rest of her life. The newborns are named Norn and Aisha, and they all begin living as a family once again. Lilia starts conversing with Rudy, and it is revealed that Paul was untrustworthy from the beginning, as he had taken advantage of Lilia's virginity when they were at the same dojo in their youth.
Hell to the law.
Rudy continues his swordsmanship training, playfully taunting his father, but their bond as father and child strengthens over time. The next morning, Sylphie and Rudy have a conversation. Rudy acts strangely as he contemplates joining a school to further improve his magical abilities. Sylphie tightly hugs him and pleads for him never to leave her, causing Rudy to reconsider and decide to stay with her. While lost in thought on his bed, Paul brings him a letter at night, which turns out to be from Roxy after 2 years since her departure. In the letter, Roxy reveals that she is currently staying in the Shire Kingdom, employed as a tutor for the 7th Prince. She shares the similarities between Rudy's actions and hers, such as peeking at her while changing and stealing her underwear. Roxy mentions that she has achieved the rank of Water King in Magic and expresses excitement and fear about seeing Rudy again. She suggests that he apply to Renoa Magic University. Paul explains that only 5 people in the world have achieved the rank of King in Magic and playfully teases Rudy about stealing Roxy's underwear. During breakfast, Rudy reconsiders going to school and asks Paul to enroll him and Sylphie together in the university. However, as Sylphie's family is not wealthy, Rudy requests Paul to pay the tuition fees for both of them. Paul refuses due to financial constraints, but he proposes an alternative plan. Later, while practicing with their swords, a girl named Ghislaine, who is a beast, arrives on horseback. Zenith and Paul react joyfully upon seeing her, and they discuss the possibility of entrusting Rudy to her care. Paul asks Rudy to distance himself from Sylphie, but Rudy refuses. Suddenly, Paul forcefully throws Rudy aside and initiates a wooden sword attack. Rudy defends himself skillfully, using techniques like the Water God style. Paul relentlessly attacks with various moves until Rudy loses consciousness. When Rudy regains consciousness, he finds himself in front of Ghislaine, who informs him that he will be working with her starting tomorrow. Later, as Rudy and Ghislaine continue on their journey, they read a letter given to them by Paul. The letter explains that Rudy will be working as a tutor for a 9-year-old girl in Roa, with Ghislaine serving as her bodyguard and swordsmanship teacher. Paul also informs Rudy that he will not be allowed to visit or receive letters for the next 5 years until he turns 12. Rudy reflects on this arrangement, realizing that it will allow him to grow independently, and mentions how Ghislaine is a muscular woman, teasingly referring to her as Paul's woman. Paul concludes the letter, and Rudy feels ready to start this new chapter without any regrets, understanding the reasoning behind the decision. They are welcomed with a drink and a lack of beast servants. Philip Boreas arrives, whom Rudy learns is the mayor of the town and Paul's cousin. Philip discusses his daughter's selfishness, and they plan to meet up. When Rudy sees his daughter for the first time, he is shocked by her appearance. Their interaction begins with her slapping Rudy, and he retaliates with a slap of his own. However, she quickly overpowers him and beats him up. Rudy defends himself with magic and manages to escape. Afterward, he meets with Philip, who asks if Rudy wants to give up. Rudy refuses and proposes a plan to set up a show that will encourage her to study. Rudy prays for his success in this endeavor. The next morning, they wake up in boxes, pretending that Rudy has been kidnapped. He plans to use his full magic powers to escape and demonstrate the importance of studying to the girl. However, when she wakes up, she starts shouting, and a man arrives and beats her severely. She tries to fight back but is overpowered. Rudy eventually heals her injuries, revealing that it was all part of their act. Rudy contemplates escaping to teach her a lesson as well, but he decides to open the grills with magic when the lady shouts for help. The guy tries to break in again to harm her, but Rudy blocks the door and tells the girl that she must promise not to act violently or speak loudly for him to save her. If she breaks the promise, Rudy informs her that they will part ways. The two men break in with a saw, but Rudy and the girl manage to escape. However, she immediately breaks her promise and refuses to listen to Rudy. Despite this, she decides to join him and agrees to the terms he set. As they travel, they hear the voices of men following them. They escape the town with the help of a carriage, and things go according to plan. Rudy spots a servant while they are running towards him, but suddenly a man takes the girl away, attempting to kidnap her. Rudy, using his magic powers, stops the man and demands that he return her. The man offers money to Rudy in exchange for the girl, which would be enough to cover Rudy's university fees. However, Rudy prioritizes saving her and refuses the offer, feeling the importance of her safety. He fires a fireball into the sky as a signal for help and engages in multiple attacks to save the girl. However, he is faced with a powerful opponent who throws a sword at Rudy using a god-style technique. Rudy feels defeated and is on the verge of death when Ghislaine arrives and delivers a powerful blow, destroying the sword and decapitating their enemies, saving both of them. Rudy experiences the sensation of his hands being soaked in blood for the first time. They return home, and Philip approaches them, relieved that Eris, the girl, is safe. Rudy feels like a failure for needing to be saved by Ghislaine. But to his surprise, Eris allows him to work there and be her tutor. The next morning, Philip expresses his appreciation for what Rudy did earlier, and explains that, as a member of the Greyrat family, Rudy can be utilized both physically and politically. Rudy is then introduced to Philip's wife, Eris' father, and Eris' grandpa, who shares the same violent nature as Eris. Eris' grandpa asks Eris for a favor of teaching her magic, which she requests in a beastman-like manner. Rudy is puzzled by her attitude when asking for a favor. Later, they practice swordsmanship, and Eris learns to create a fireball, while Gillian also learns arithmetic alongside magic. During arithmetic lessons, Eris constantly runs away, punches Rudy, or hides. Rudy tries various times to wake her up when she falls asleep, but he also attempts to steal her panties, which results in her waking up and punching him again. Rudy asks Gillian for help, as Eris is tired of studying. Gillian tells Eris a story about their past when they were part of a group called the Fangs of the Black Wolf, which also included Paul and Zenith. Gillian recalls a time when she was left alone and struggled to calculate money while traveling. She went without eating or drinking for 10 days until she found monster feces, which she ate and subsequently experienced diarrhea. After that incident, she developed an interest in learning arithmetic. The story captures Eris' interest, and she starts paying attention to Rudy's lessons. They resume practicing swordsmanship, but Rudy's movements are much slower than Eris's, indicating his need for improvement as he continually gets beaten by her. Rudy finds the process of earning money through his daily work tiring but remains motivated by his goal of studying alongside Sylph at Roa University. The next morning, they visit the market after their lessons. Rudy finds the walls and the city beautiful and becomes excited. While at the market, Eris starts noting down the prices of items. Rudy is called over by a shopkeeper who tries to sell him an adult medicine aphrodisiac, which Rudy takes note of. He explains some arithmetic to Eris and Gillian, even praising Eris for her incorrect answers. Later, Rudy encourages Eris to earn money as well while they continue noting the prices of books. On their way back home, Rudy suddenly becomes scared upon seeing the armored dragon King Perugius' sky castle. Gillian and Eris explain to him about Perugius, who was one of the heroes that defeated the Laplace demon, an enemy of the human race. Rudy remembers reading about it in Paul's book earlier and hopes to visit it someday. The next morning, Eris confidently solves problems without hesitation. Rudy allows her breaks and weekends off, and she buys him the medicine aphrodisiac as a gift, unaware of what it actually is. Rudy desperately tries to hide it from Eris and Gillian, but it accidentally drops from his hand and breaks. Rudy clumsily tries to cover up the situation by mistakenly mentioning the word aphrodisiac. The next day begins with their usual sword practice, where Eris performs exceptionally well with her high pace against Gillian. Eris expresses her desire to become an advanced swordswoman. They also continue practicing arithmetic and magic casting. Eris' mother, Crossbeat, sees her but ignores Rudy as usual, which leaves him confused each time. Finally, Rudy finishes making a statue of his master, Roxy, even going so far as to smell her panties, even though it's just a statue. At that moment, a servant woman knocks on the door and asks Rudy for a favor. She discusses Eris' upcoming birthday party, where high aristocrats will be in attendance. The main event of the party is Eris' dance show. The servant further explains Eris' struggle with dancing every year and asks for Rudy's help in teaching her to handle it. Rudy agrees to assist. The next morning, Philip shows Rudy books from different continents, capturing Rudy's attention. However, he finds it challenging to read them as they are written in different languages from around the world. Rudy decides to start by learning the beast god language, finding beasts to be beautiful and cute creatures. Philip grants permission for Rudy to take the books with him and borrow them. Later, Rudy writes a letter to Roxy about the languages he wants to learn and updates her on his life. He finds the beast god's language equally challenging. Suddenly, he hears the sound of Eris running, and her dance teacher explains the situation to Rudy. If Eris continues to avoid learning the dance routine, she will fail the main event at her birthday party. The teacher asks for Rudy's help. Rudy approaches Eris, finding her lying down, and tries to persuade her to practice. However, she greets him with a kick. They engage in a heartfelt conversation about not avoiding things one is already good at. Rudy understands the situation and motivates her to do those things as they lead to great accomplishments. Eris punches Rudy, and they start practicing dancing together, although it doesn't go smoothly. Meanwhile, Rudy learns the beast god language from Gillian and sells the statue he made in the market, earning a coin. While Rudy is trying to read the beast god language, he receives a package containing a letter from Roxy. She explains her ongoing situation and mentions that the beast god's language is indeed complicated, with books scattered around the world. Roxy shares that she received a statue from the prince that closely resembles her, even matching her body shape below. She has also written a textbook for Rudy with her own hands. After reading the letter, Rudy feels indebted to Roxy and decides that he will lick her feet when they meet. The next morning, Eris and Rudy practice dancing together again for the main event the following day. Eris performs well, but Rudy tells her that he won't be her partner tomorrow. However, the day arrives, and a grand party is arranged by Philip and his father to celebrate Eris turning 10 years old. The focus shifts to the main event, Eris' dance performance. Rudy and the servant watch her with great hope. Suddenly, a guy interrupts with the intention of dancing with Eris, and she gratefully accepts. The music starts playing, and the dance begins. After a few moves, Eris starts dancing too fast, causing her to fall. People in attendance begin calling her names like a spoiled child, with no improvement, and a pathetic dancer. Eris feels useless and loses her confidence. Rudy steps in, asking her to dance with him and suggesting that she follows their practiced routine. Though she nearly falls again, Rudy motivates her to overcome her nervousness. He comes up with the idea of using their swordsmanship signaling to dodge. The idea works, and the dance becomes smoother than expected. Everyone is smiling and clapping. Eris' grandpa lifts them on his shoulders, and some girls try to get close to Rudy, but Eris takes him back to the room, and the party ends. Later, Rudy gifts Ghislaine and Eris each with a stick, symbolizing their mastery. Ghislaine gifts Eris an amulet that will protect her from evil men at night, making Eris happier. The next morning, Rudy wakes up next to Eris. While walking, he sees a tower and decides to explore it. He reaches the top and unexpectedly witnesses his grandpa engaged in lovemaking. Rudy apologizes for disturbing him. He notices a shiny object revolving in the sky and prays for it to bring him a girl. Later, Rudy reflects on his swordsmanship skills and realizes that there is a significant talent gap between him and Eris. 2 years have passed, and he notices that the revolving object in the sky has become larger than before. Rudy encounters Eris talking with others and initially believes they are gossiping about him. However, he soon learns that they are actually planning a surprise birthday celebration for him. He discovers that Paul's real name is Nodos and that the Nodos family is one of the 4 heads of the Greyrat family. The current head of the family is Paul's younger brother, whom Rudy considers to be even worse than Paul. Rudy worries that having a big birthday party like Eris's could lead to misunderstandings, so he decides to practice crying to make the scenario look genuine. While talking with Ghislaine, Rudy notices several unusual movements happening around him. He tries to get some food, but Ghislaine stops him to engage in conversation. Rudy realizes that it is a celebration of his birthday. He shows Ghislaine the statue he made of her, but notices that the tail is missing. Rudy mischievously asks Ghislaine to show him her tail, and she promptly lowers her pants. To Rudy's surprise, her rear end turns out to be incredibly muscular. As Rudy examines them closely, a servant suddenly arrives, creating an awkward moment. The celebration begins, and everyone wishes Rudy a happy birthday. Eris presents him with a surprise gift, a wand made from superb materials from the best wand maker in the kingdom, bearing the sign of Aquahesia. Everyone celebrates the event, and Rudy enjoys it as well. While sitting with Paul, they discuss the younger and older brothers who were taken away shortly after birth due to the tradition of losing the successor. Hilda, Paul's wife, resented Rudy's presence because her own children were not there. Paul offers Rudy the opportunity to marry Eris and take over the Boreas family, but Rudy declines, considering himself just a 10-year-old kid. Later, Rudy goes to his room to sleep and finds Eris sitting on her bed in a delightful mood. Rudy tries to get closer to her by getting naked, losing his senses. However, Eris beats him up and he apologizes. Since it is Rudy's special day, she graciously accepts his apologies and tells him to control himself until he becomes an adult in 5 years. Rudy jumps with happiness and decides to control himself until then, but he suddenly remembers Sylphie. On the other side, Paul is fighting monsters in his village that have recently become more active. They are eager to celebrate Rudy's birthday, and all family members, including Sylphie and maid Lilia, have prepared various gifts to send to him. Meanwhile, Paul and the family suddenly notice unusual dark clouds approaching. Roxy also senses the increase in magical power, and other magicians around the world notice the great surge in magical energy. Even the Empress of the Demon Realm, Kishirika, realizes that someone is attempting to release the seal on the demon god Laplace. As Rudy practices magic with his new wand, trying out multiple attacks, he finds its power impressive. However, the sky suddenly becomes dark and unusual. Ghislaine also senses a tremendous amount of magic and suggests they leave the area. Suddenly, a man named Almanfi appears and launches multiple attacks to kill Rudy. He introduces himself as someone ordered by the legendary Perugius to eliminate the person causing abnormalities, whom he believes is Rudy. Ghislaine introduces herself as the Sword King and reveals her master. Almanfi sheathes his weapon, and Rudy begins to contemplate the situation. Suddenly, a bright light emanates from above, causing Almanfi to vanish, and the sky explodes. Everyone, including Ghislaine, Eris, and Rudy, starts running for safety. Later, Rudeus finds himself in a mysterious location where he encounters a being known as the human god, Hitagami. Hitagami reveals that Rudeus is experiencing a dream and has been brought there to receive important advice. The reason Rudeus appears in his old body is because that's how he perceives himself mentally, and he will return to his physical body upon waking up. Hitagami explains that the earlier blast was a mana cataclysm that transported Rudeus to this place. He advises Rudeus to have faith in the person he wakes up next to, and to assist them in any way they need in order to survive. Rudeus wakes up next to a sleeping Spurd named Rudeus, with Eris nearby and Ghislaine absent. Initially, Rudeus feels uneasy due to the mentions of Spurds by his parents and Roxy. However, he attempts to communicate with Rudeus using the demon tongue. Rudeus reveals his name and expresses his determination to safely return Eris and Rudeus home. Eris is initially frightened of Rudeus, but over time, she begins to trust him. They embark on a hike through the desert, and Rudeus explains that his third eye, also known as the Red Diamond, enables him to sense the presence of monsters. After a while, they stumble upon a village inhabited by blue-haired demons. The villagers notice Rudeus's necklace, given to him by his mentor, Roxy, causing them to react strongly. It is revealed that Roxy herself is from this demon tribe. Surprisingly, Rudeus gets the chance to meet Roxy's parents during their stay in the village. While sitting around a fire, Rudeus learns that Rudeus cannot freely enter cities due to a red mark on his forehead. Nevertheless, Rudeus is determined to change the perception and improve the reputation of Spurds. They recount the events of 400 years ago, explaining why Spurds are feared. The Demon King, Laplace, played a significant role in the past. Laplace wanted to incite demons against humans and sought the aid of the Spurd tribe. He provided them with cursed spears, which caused uncontrollable rage and led the Spurds to indiscriminately attack and kill, including their own families and innocent children. Rudeus carries the spear once used by his own son. The following morning, Rudeus, and Eris bid farewell to Roxy's place. Before they leave, Roxy's parents present Rudeus with a sword and a small pouch containing something of significance, and Rudeus firmly resolves to assist Rudeus in redeeming the Spurd tribe's reputation. As Eris enjoys her new sword by testing it on monsters, Rudeus and Rudeus have dinner consisting of monster meat. They plan to enter a city, but Rudeus informs them that he won't be allowed in because of his nickname Dead End, which scares people across the demon continent. Rudeus suggests he could easily jump over the city wall, but Rudeus advises against it to prevent causing panic. Using blue goo nearby, Rudeus changes Rudeus' hair color. Since they are all broke, they decide to sign up at an adventurer's guild to earn rewards. They adopt the name Dead End to help Rudeus gain recognition by completing quests together. They introduce Rudeus to a group of loud adventurers, but they laugh at him and doubt his abilities. A horse demon trolls them before they leave. Rudeus buys a cloak for Eris, and they go to have a meal together. During their meal, a group of adventurers asks Eris to join their party, but she doesn't respond. Accidentally, they break the button on Eris's cloak, which infuriates her and leads her to mercilessly beat one of the adventurers. Rudeus apologizes, heals the injured adventurer, and they leave to stay at a nearby inn. Rudeus calculates that if they continue doing low-ranked missions, they won't be able to afford to stay in inns. During the night, Hitagami appears in Rudeus's dream once again. Frustrated with being trapped in his old body, Rudeus urges Hitagami to quickly reveal any important information so that he can return to his child form. Hitagami advises Rudeus to take a quest to find a lost kitten. Rudeus feels confused as such quests don't offer significant rewards, but he trusts Hitagami enough to accept the quest the next morning. Rudeus uses his third eye or red diamond to locate the kitten. They discover that the kitten resembles more of a panther than a typical domestic cat. They also learn that a group of adventurers has been capturing small animals and then returning them when a quest to find them is posted by the guild. Rudeus, Eris, and Rudeus confront them, and Rudeus attempts to scare one of them into revealing why they trap animals. Loman, one of the adventurers, kicks Rudeus with great force, sending him flying into a wall. Witnessing this, Rudeus swiftly decapitates Loman, terrifying his guildmates. Rudeus tries to explain to Rudeus that killing isn't always the solution, but Rudeus doesn't understand and remains confused about Rudeus's reaction. Rudeus threatens the remaining two guildmates and demands that they undertake a higher-level C-rank quest at the Adventurers Guild. He also insists on exchanging quests with their team. By doing so, Rudeus and his guild can take on more challenging quests and increase the recognition of the Dead End name. Back at the Adventurers Guild, they discover that the reward for their F-rank mission is only 1 coin, which shocks Rudeus, Rudeus, and Eris. The episode ends with the 2 remaining guildmates emerging from the hall and following Rudeus's instructions. Lastly, a horse demon mocks the group of 5. Later, Roxy looks at a bulletin board that lists the names of those who died in the Mana Cataclysm. Surprisingly, Rudeus and his family members are not on the list. 2 people nearby are discussing Rudeus with anger. Roxy decides to write a letter for Rudeus, leaving it on the bulletin board. The letter mentions that she is taking care of Nor and going to Zenith's homeland of Millis to search for Aisha, Lilia, and Zenith, who are still missing. Roxy believes that Rudeus will be fine on his own. Rudeus, Eris, and Rudeus embark on a quest to explore the petrified forest and uncover the truth about a terrifying monster. However, when they arrive, they encounter 2 other teams who also received the same quest. It seems that the guild accidentally assigned the quest to 3 different teams simultaneously. The team of pig demons declares that they will find and defeat the monster first, claiming the reward for themselves. Rudeus expresses concern for Kurt's team, as they are children, and they decide to follow them and intervene if necessary. The situation becomes intense, but Rudeus prevents Rudeus from interfering too early as it wouldn't enhance their reputation. However, Rudeus waits too long, resulting in the loss of one of Kurt's team members. Rudeus feels a strong sense of guilt, and Rudeus is furious with him. However, Kurt reassures Rudeus, stating that it wasn't his fault and taking responsibility for not being strong enough. Kurt and her surviving teammates leave. They hear the pig demon struggling in a fight against the redwood cobra, the monster they were supposed to investigate. Rudeus instructs his group to intervene before any more casualties occur. Rudeus attempts to attack with a fireball but misses. Rudeus damages the monster with his spear, and Eris tries to slash it with her sword but fails. Rudeus misses another fireball attack. The monster is about to attack Rudeus, but Rudeus intercepts, and Eris finishes it off with a single powerful strike. Rudeus deals the final blow with his fireball. They win the battle, but Rudeus discovers the dead pig demon and feels sorrowful for not arriving in time. Upon returning to the city, they encounter Nakapara, the horse demon, who tries to threaten them and demands half of their monthly incomes. Rudeus desperately tries to figure out a way to escape this situation. Meanwhile, Rudeus surprises everyone by revealing his green hair by pouring water over his head. This shocks people, as they believe he is the real dead end. Rudeus threatens Nakapara, stating that they are leaving the city and that if their license is revoked, he will kill him. As the guards approach to arrest Rudeus, he flees, leaving Rudeus and Eris on their own. They stumble upon Kurt and her remaining teammate, who are astonished to see Rudeus. That night, Rudeus and Eris search for Rudeus and apologize for their respective mistakes. Rudeus also apologizes for not understanding Rudeus's situation. They camp outside the city walls, and the next morning, they find that Rudeus has shaved his hair to avoid being recognized. Rudeus gives him a headband, symbolizing their decision to make choices together from now on. Later, Eris, Rudeus, and Rudeus reach the sea. Eris attempts to undress, hoping to swim, but Rudeus stops them due to the presence of dangerous sea monsters. Roxy reminds the group of their goal for the trip. Later, Rudeus, Eris, and Rudeus search for a boat to travel from the demon continent to Millis. The boatman greets them with nicknames, referring to Eris as Mad Dog and forgetting Rudeus's name. Shocked, they learn that the boat trip costs 200 green ore coins. During lunch, they discuss their money problem, and Eris suggests Rudeus run across the sea, which he refuses. That night, Rudeus falls asleep pondering their predicament and has another dream encounter with Hitagami. Rudeus is initially skeptical after the previously failed advice, but listens as Hitagami suggests buying lots of food from street stalls and walking through back alleys. Hitagami disappears suddenly. The next morning, Eris and Rudeus practice sword fighting, but Rudeus loses focus upon seeing Roxy behind Eris, much to Eris's delight. Meanwhile, Rudeus follows Hitagami's advice, buying plenty of food and walking back. As he senses Roxy's presence, he takes a few more steps and hears joyful sounds of women enjoying their lives. Along the way, he encounters a girl begging for food, with bees buzzing around her. Rudeus gives her food, and to his surprise, the girl performs a backflip after eating and thanks him for saving her life, as she can now live for another year. The girl introduces herself as Kishika, the demon emperor, in a vibrant manner.
かわいそうに。一人で魔王ごっこなんて友達いないんだろうな。
Rudeus playfully respects her as she asks for a wish to fulfill for him. Rudeus suggests making him wealthy or granting him her body, but she refuses, mentioning her fiancé. Instead, she rewards him by replacing one of his eyes with a demon eye before leaving. Struggling with his new eye, Rudeus finds it difficult to see properly. However, he manages to save a man from falling objects when he reconsiders the situation. Rudeus discusses the eye's capabilities with Rudeus, who explains that Kishika possesses 12 demon eyes and can see through all things. Eris becomes excited to meet her. Rudeus decides to stay home until he becomes accustomed to the eye. After a week, Rudeus becomes more comfortable with the eye, realizing it is similar to casting magic. He can control the amount of magic power used, allowing him to see ahead by 2 seconds. Using his newfound skills, he easily defeats Eris in a fight, which frustrates her. She leaves for home, and Rudeus commends Rudeus for his mastery of the demon eye. Rudeus challenges Rudeus but ends up losing badly. While sitting together, Rudeus appreciates Eris for her previous victory against Rudeus to lighten her mood. Later, Rudeus contemplates taking Eris back home and considers selling his wand to get the necessary money. He ventures out at night but is caught by Rudeus. They have an emotional conversation about trust and making decisions together. Rudeus realizes that selling the wand, which Eris made for his birthday, would hurt her. Rudeus' pride also prevents him from selling the wand. Rudeus decides to take the smuggler's boat, known as the Evil Eye, for their journey. Suddenly, a man named Gallus Cleaner arrives to thank Rudeus for saving him earlier and introduces himself. The story shifts to Roxy, Elinalise, and Talhan in the city searching for Paul's family. Elinalise is interested in men and seeks enjoyable nights with them, causing them to waste time wherever they go. During a conversation, Roxy mentions a dangerous demon named Dead End. Talhan tells Roxy about a party of 3 individuals around the demon continent: Mad Dog Eris, Watchdog Rudeus, and Pet Owner Rudeus. Roxy advises them to stay away from them as they might be powerful. They haven't made any progress in finding clues about Paul's family and decide to gather information the next morning. While taking a walk near the beach, Rudeus encounters Eris and Rudeus practicing swordsmanship. Roxy, sneaking around, gets caught by Rudeus. Fearful of Eris, she hides in a room and accidentally casts a spell that breaks the wall, resulting in costly repairs. They proceed to the next town. Gallus Cleaner agrees to smuggle and transport Rudeus across the sea. Rudeus fantasizes about an enjoyable adventure on the ship with Eris, battling monsters, getting stranded on an island, and having delightful nights together. However, Eris starts vomiting due to seasickness. Rudeus, although having impure thoughts, controls his attraction to Eris's body. They finally reach their destination, and Eris decides never to travel by ship again. Rudeus leaves to pick up Rudeus and instructs Eris to take care of herself. Later, Rudeus arrives at a secret location and knocks on a door. He is taken to an underground basement where smuggling activities occur. On the way, he witnesses a fierce dog and the killing of a beast woman who sought help. Upon reaching Rudeus, the person in charge orders Rudeus to take him and leave. Rudeus tells Rudeus to listen carefully, revealing that some people from the beast race have been kidnapped. 6 of them are still captive, with 1 already killed. They decide to kill the guards and rescue the captives. Rudeus worries about Rudeus' spurred nature potentially scaring people if exposed, but he rethinks and decides to save them. They release Rudeus, who starts eliminating the guards. Rudeus approaches the imprisoned women, initially scaring them, but he starts healing them. Rudeus joins them, killing the remaining guards. Unfortunately, they fail to revive the woman who was killed. Rudeus commands them all to follow him to the nearest town, speaking in the beast language. One of the women reminds Rudeus that they left the beast dog behind. Bravely, Rudeus returns to the building alone to rescue the dog, encountering a barrier that he breaks with his magic. The dog becomes happy and starts licking him. Suddenly, another beast man appears with a powerful attack, stunning Rudeus and rendering him unable to speak or move. The beast man identifies him as a smuggler and smiles creepily. Another beast man senses the others heading towards the town, prompting him to follow them. He orders the other one to take the boy and the beast dog back to the village while he takes Rudeus with him for severe punishment. Later, Rudeus finds himself living in a rent-free apartment made of warm Japanese beech wood. The bed is surrounded by bugs, and there's a unique toilet that allows direct waste disposal to the ground. The apartment also includes delicious breakfast and dinner. However, Rudeus soon realizes that it is actually a prison exclusively for criminals. Despite being able to use magic to escape easily, he remains unaware of his location and decides to stay, hoping to explain the situation to someone. One day, a female guard arrives and Rudeus tries to explain himself but is dismissed as a pervert. Cold water is thrown on him whenever he speaks out, leaving him feeling hopeless and praying for help. As days pass, Rudeus watches birds and other activities while waiting for Eris and Rudeus to arrive. He occasionally thinks about Rudeus engaged in fights with the beastmen but tries to stop overthinking and desperately awaits their arrival. One morning, a new guy named Geese is thrown into prison alongside Rudeus. Despite being naked, Rudeus welcomes him as a newbie and calls himself Senpai.
どうしたシーリー
Rudeus asks Geese about a red-haired girl, hoping for some information. but Geese knows nothing. At night, Rudeus receives a massage from Geese while daydreaming about being with 100 women. They also discuss their escape plans, with Rudeus emphasizing his innocence and concern for his comrades. Rudeus asks Geese to be his guide, but Geese refuses, leading to an argument. During their argument, Rudeus notices that the girl guarding them is no longer present, and the environment becomes hotter. Suddenly, they witness a fire spreading around them. In a rush, Rudeus quickly opens the cage, only to see smugglers killing the beastmen and capturing their children. Rudeus sees this as an opportunity to escape but reconsiders and discusses with Geese the possibility of helping them all. They begin by taking down one smuggler, and Rudeus uses his magic to create cold air and rain, extinguishing the fire. As the smugglers attack them, aware of Rudeus's magical abilities, a beastman arrives, the same one who imprisoned Rudeus before. With his speed and skill, the beastman manages to kill some smugglers. He asks Rudeus and Geese for help in rescuing the kidnapped children. Just then, Gallus Cleaner arrives with a hostage, revealing himself as the true smuggler who used Rudeus and the others as bait to distract the skilled Doldia group. The Beastman launches an attack on Gallus, showcasing the North God style, a formidable fighting technique. Rudeus finds it challenging to defeat Gallus, and the situation seems bleak when Gallus walks with a crying child in hand, causing Rudeus to lose hope momentarily. However, the beast dog arrives and attacks Gallus, while Geese throws sand in his face, temporarily incapacitating him. Rudeus casts a powerful spell, resulting in a blast that successfully defeats Gallus. In the process, Rudeus sustains an injury from a knife attack, causing him to fall unconscious. When Rudeus wakes up, he sees the dog licking his face, and Eris, Ruigerd, and others are present. Eris informs him that he has defeated a North Saint. The Beastmen apologize to Rudeus for their previous behavior and express their gratitude, thanking him for his help. Rudeus questions Eris about arriving late and expresses his worries. Eris explains the trouble they faced, including Ruigerd's encounter with the Doldia group, which almost led to a fight due to misunderstandings. They resolve the conflict and continue their search for the other smugglers. Eris was tasked with guarding the kidnapped children. As Rudeus talks with Eris, he mentions the numerous stories he plans to share with the Boreas family, including their time in the Beast Village. Eris happily anticipates bragging about their grandpa meeting them soon. Meanwhile, on the other side, Grandpa is causing chaos and facing opposition due to his failure to establish legitimate measures in the region. As a result, he is beheaded, leaving Eris hoping for a happy life.
ですが、エリス、もし生きているなら、どうか幸せに。
Later, Eris had a great time with the kids, Terusina and Tona, at a nearby lake. Meanwhile, the usual scum, Rudeus, was watching them from a hole while sitting in a box. Suddenly, he kicked a dog, and Mushuko arrived on the scene. Rudeus started making excuses and warned Mushuko to stay away from her daughter, Tona. However, Rudeus quickly apologized when confronted and even warned about the dangers of his previous gambling activities, which resulted in Gallus and Geese being imprisoned. They all had a peaceful dinner together, and Eris took the opportunity to teach the kids some language skills. Mushuko thanked Eris for getting along with her daughter and noticed a ring on Eris's finger, which was proof of her association with the Doldia people. The ring had been gifted to Eris by Ghislaine on her birthday. The atmosphere suddenly changed as Mushuko referred to Ghislaine as a jerk for giving up on protecting the Great Forest and Beast Sama. She decided to take her daughter away in anger. Eris ran back to them and defended Ghislaine, stating that she was her master and an amazing person who always protected her. Rudeus comforted Eris, preventing her from crying, and told Mushuko that they respected Ghislaine a lot. Later, Eris thought about how much she loved Ghislaine, and the kids asked her to tell them more about Aunt Ghislaine, who was Mushuko's little sister. Eris explained Ghislaine's strength and swordsmanship, cautioning the kids not to become like her. Eris expressed her gratitude to Ghislaine for teaching her swordsmanship, and Tona asked Eris to teach her Ghislaine's swordsmanship. Eris agreed, and Mushuko overheard their conversation. Later, they practiced swordsmanship together while Mushuko and Rudeus had a conversation about Ghislaine. Mushuko noticed a change in Ghislaine. 3 months passed, and Terusina mentioned that the rainy season would soon come to an end. Eris informed them that they would be leaving once the rainy season was over. Tona started crying, and Rudeus created a statue, occupying himself with playing with the beast. A woman taunted Rudeus for being lustful, which upset Terusina. Suddenly, Terusina ran to Eris, who was being beaten by Tona. Tona wanted Eris to stay forever and was angry about her leaving. Later, Tona lay on her bed, and Terusina asked her to apologize to Eris. Mushuko arrived and informed Tona that Eris, Rudeus, and Ruigerd would be leaving the next day. She explained that Ghislaine had always trained alone and had a bad temper, often hurting people around her like a monster. Ghislaine left the village with a swordsman, and Mushuko regretted not saving her earlier. She doubted that Ghislaine would ever return and asked Tona if she wanted to part ways with Eris as well. Later, the kids sneaked into Eris's room, and Tona apologized for being selfish. Eris, along with the kids, became happier seeing the wooden statues they had created together. The next morning, everyone was prepared to leave. The kids cried, along with Eris, and everyone hoped they would visit the village again. Mushuko wanted a friendly match with Eris before they left, and they had a duel. Surprisingly, Eris lost, confusing Rudeus. Eventually, they bid emotional goodbyes and began their journey. During their travels, Geese unexpectedly joined them, having escaped from prison. Geese decided to travel with them and shared some suspicious stories about the road and the 7 strongest warriors in the world. After traveling for a long time and having a great time together, they finally reached the Holy Millie's kingdom. Geese decided to part ways with them, hoping to meet again in the future. The team had a meeting to discuss their strategy as Dead End, a team that had been sent off to the Demon Continent a year and a half ago. Their next plan was to head to Ashura, but they stopped in the Holy Millie's kingdom to earn some money for efficient travel. Rudeus came up with a brilliant strategy to clear the fear of the supered race from people's minds by helping them and rewarding them with an amulet of Rudeus. He also intended to write a letter to his family. Meanwhile, Eris decided to fight goblins around the city. The next morning, Rudeus sat thinking about what to write to his brother Paul. Suddenly, he witnessed a kidnapping taking place, which went against the Dead End team's rule of never abandoning children. In pursuit of justice, Rudeus followed the kidnappers and sneakily entered the room where they were keeping the child. Rudeus assessed the strength of his opponents and discovered that they were trying to feed the kid. He searched the nearby boxes and realized that he had touched the same cloth before, which turned out to be panties. Mistakenly, he shouted and introduced himself as Rudeus of Dead End, wearing the panties on his face. The opponents felt fear and Rudeus attacked, eliminating all of them. While Rudeus looked at the kid's face, he suddenly remembered seeing him before. More people arrived, and a woman identified her panties, which Rudeus had worn. Rudeus, being his usual scum self, couldn't focus on the fight as she kept attacking and called him a pervert. The captain, who was drunk, arrived, and Rudeus recognized him as the man he had seen earlier. The captain approached with fast movements to attack but suddenly fell for Rudeus's magic trick. However, he quickly got back up and sliced the rock that Rudeus had created, inadvertently slicing his own panties. Rudeus's face was revealed, and it turned out that the captain was actually his dad, Paul. Later, they sat in a bar with others watching them, and Paul was glad that Rudeus had survived. He asked about the message Rudeus had sent, but Rudeus couldn't remember receiving any message recently. However, Rudeus explained the troubles he had faced since the teleportation incident, and how they ended up where they were, considering it a fun journey. Paul misunderstood and criticized Rudeus for not thinking about his family and trying to gather information about the others when he was on the Demon Continent. Paul also pointed out that Rudeus hadn't even written a letter to anyone and had been spending his time with a young lady and a guard. The situation heated up as Rudeus taunted Paul about the women by his side, referring to Zenith and Lilia. They engaged in a fight, with Rudeus describing the difficulties he had faced. Suddenly, a young girl pushed Rudeus to stop beating her dad. Rudeus identified her as Norn, his little sister, and walked away sadly, planning to leave the city as soon as possible. He spent some hard times in his room, contemplating what to do. He became sick of weakness, and then Eris and Rudeus arrived and found Rudeus weak and emotionally broken. Eris tried to comfort him. Later, the story shifts focus to Paul. He suddenly teleports and opens his eyes in an unfamiliar place, a flat ground with nothing but grass and trees. He holds Norn in his hands and remembers seeing the dark sky along with his family. He survives alone in the forest, protecting Norn and traveling until he reaches a village full of camps. There, he learns about what actually happened and gathers a team to find people. He spends his days with his daughter and becomes addicted to drinking alcohol as he falls into depression. Geese arrives at a bar in search of Paul and finds him heavily drinking, in a bad mood. Geese asks him to join the guild tomorrow as he wants to show him something. He inquires about Paul's depression, and Paul explains the whole scenario to his son. Geese helps him understand that he is expecting too much from his 11-year-old son, who is a genius at casting magic and managed to survive on the Demon Continent by himself. Geese explains the difficulties of surviving in the Demon Continent, considering that Paul is from the Central Continent and has never been there. He tells Paul about Rudeus's journey in a happier way, emphasizing that Rudeus has already gone through a lot. Geese leaves, saying that Paul should be happier to see each other safe and healthy, making Paul rethink his perspective. At night, while Norn is sleeping, Paul imagines a view of Rudeus crying for help. Realizing his state and being heavily drunk, he throws water on himself to sober up. The next morning, Rudeus, Eris, and Rudeus are having breakfast near the hotel when Paul arrives, clean-shaven. Eris, full of anger, tries to stop Paul, but Rudeus takes her out. Paul and Rudeus sit alone together and have a talk where Paul apologizes for his behavior the previous day. Rudeus also feels sorry, and as the discussion continues, the bar owner watches the whole scenario. Rudeus tells Paul about his plan to take Eris to the Fitoa region, but Paul reveals that the region no longer exists and the people are gone. However, Rudeus continues with his plan, mentioning his intention to search for his mother and Lilia. He describes his plans, and just as Rudeus was about to walk away, the bar owner comes up with a drink and tells Rudeus to at least look at his father's face. Rudeus remembers his friend from the past who was trying to cheer him up while playing games but ended up getting beaten. He never had a chance to apologize or meet again. Rudeus realizes that Paul has come to apologize, and with a happy face, he proposes that they act like adults, forget what happened yesterday, and cheer up for their reunion after several years. He asks Paul to spread his hands and kneel down. Suddenly, Rudeus hugs him with a jump, filled with emotions of missing each other, and they both cry. Later, they have a happier talk in a room as they reunite. Eris shows up with a beaten face, indicating that Rudeus had difficulties stopping her. Paul apologizes for troubling them, and Rudeus heals Eris. Rudeus comes up with a different plan for traveling to the central continent the next day, as his father Paul has provided the travel fee and introduction letters. Rudeus explains the possibility of not finding Philip along with Ghislaine and others due to the teleportation. However, Eris is already prepared. The next morning, they leave, saying an emotional goodbye to Norn and Paul, with the hope of meeting them again. Geese also departs, heading for Bullied as he is done searching there. As Rudeus and the others continue their journey, they encounter some guys challenging Rudeus to a fight. However, Rudeus easily defeats them and gives them an amulet. Later, they travel on a ship, and both Rudeus and Eris have a hard time with seasickness. Eris keeps calling Rudeus to heal her, while Rudeus remains unaffected. During the journey, Rudeus talks about his relationship with Paul and their current location in the middle of the journey. He also discusses the rice production area, as he loves eating rice and gives priority to finding his family and clearing the name of the supered race. However, there is still no clue about Zenith, Aisha, Ghislaine, or Sylphie. Rudeus tries to remain positive and hopeful about finding them. Meanwhile, Roxy learns that her friend Blaze has died and was swallowed by the redwood cobra. Rudeus's horse friend shares that he got into trouble with 3 guys called Dead End, which makes Rudeus fearful. He asks Roxy about her parents, and she replies that nobody feels happy for her if she goes there because she can't use telepathy, which makes everyone uncomfortable around the village. However, the horse friend motivates Roxy to visit her village so she won't regret it. Roxy embarks on her way to visit the village and notices that a few more people have joined, but the village remains creepily quiet, just like before. She suddenly sees a woman standing and has a feeling of rocks knocking, which she tries to control. On her way, she reflects on how much she hates the village and never wanted to come back. She sees children playing and remembers a drawing she made on a rock when she was a kid. One child falls and gets hurt, and Roxy uses her healing magic to help him. However, she runs away from there as she keeps hearing those sounds. When Roxy arrives at her home, her mom and dad are happy to see her back again. Roxy stays in a bad mood, not talking much. Her parents tell her to stay as long as she wants, but Roxy insists on leaving, claiming she is on a busy journey. Her mom grabs her hand and starts crying. Roxy sees her toys arranged and remembers the time she used to play with them when nobody wanted to talk to her because she couldn't use telepathy as a heretic. She recalls thinking that her parents would be happy if she were gone. Roxy also cries and feels apologetic to her dad and mom. The next morning, Roxy wakes up, has breakfast, and tells her parents that she has to leave because her disciple is missing. Her parents inform her that Rudeus, along with Eris and Rudeus, a supered, was in the village. Hearing about the supered, Roxy loses her senses. She bids her parents goodbye with the hope of meeting Rudeus again. As Roxy continues her journey, she figures out that the rumors about the 3 dead-end people were actually about Rudeus and his party. Upon reaching home, she finds Elinalise having delightful moments as she uses her magic again.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
Later, they travel towards the northwest of the demon continent in search of Paul's family, with the hope of meeting Rudeus somewhere along the way. Rudeus finds himself once again in a dream encounter with the Hitagami god, reflecting on the previous advice he received and the mysterious demon eye. In this dream, Rudeus is reverted back to his old self, evoking both gratitude and anger within him. He anxiously awaits God's next guidance, seeking information about his family members. The god insists that when Rudeus reunites with his family, he must follow the advice given and refrain from fighting when brought into the dream realm. Hitagami presents advice to Rudeus, showing Aisha in distress and crying before the soldiers. The god suggests that Rudeus should not reveal his real name to her, and instead write a letter to someone he knows in the palace of Shiren Kingdom to inquire about the situation. Assuring Rudeus that he will rescue Lilia and Aisha, the god departs, leaving Rudeus abruptly waking up and feeling sick. The following morning, Rudeus and his companions finally arrive in the kingdom. During their boat journey, they enjoy their time together, savoring rice. Eris finds joy in the presence of people and animals around her. Rudeus contemplates writing a letter to Roxy, as she previously worked in the palace and may help in saving Lilia and Aisha. He informs Eris and Rudeus that, according to a certain source, his family is being held captive somewhere in the kingdom. He seeks their assistance in gathering information while keeping the source undisclosed. As they approach their destination, Rudeus decides to write a letter to Roxy in the palace. While heading back home, Rudeus senses someone following him, casting a shadowy presence. Reacting instinctively, he conjures a defensive wall, only to discover that it is Aisha engaged in a struggle with soldiers to retrieve her letter. Aisha expresses her gratitude to Rudeus for saving her and pleads for his help to rescue her mother, Lilia. The commotion alarms the soldiers, but Rudeus uses his magic to escape. Aisha introduces herself and thanks Rudeus, while he introduces himself as Shadow Moon Knight, as instructed by God. Rudeus tries to inquire about Aisha's knowledge of him, which leads to her revealing that her brother found Rudeus's secret box of panties, deeming him a pervert. Rudeus realizes God's warning about revealing his real name was to avoid such situations, but decides to entrust Aisha with rescuing Lilia. As Aisha falls asleep, Rudeus instructs the others to refer to him as pet owner in front of her, to maintain the false information she has about him. They all eagerly await a reply from Roxy, Aisha's master, the next morning. To their surprise, a palace servant arrives and informs Rudeus that Roxy has sent her to accompany him to the palace. Rudeus leaves with his backpack and instructs the others to take care of Aisha in his absence. Upon reaching the palace, Rudeus is instructed to surrender his belongings, including his wand, raising his suspicions. Nonetheless, he prepares himself to meet his master. As the door opens, Rudeus is confronted by a person seated on a chair, and to his horror, he sees Lilia bound. The person demands Roxy's presence and orders the guards to release a magic circle, a high-level barrier, trapping Roxy and using Rudeus as bait. The person reveals himself as Pax, the 7th Prince of Shiren, who intends to keep Roxy as a lifelong slave. Pax also plans to execute Rudeus by severing his head. Realizing that he may have been deceived by God, Rudeus questions the validity of the advice he followed. Lilia witnessed the Mana Cataclysm unfolding, observing a massive blue beam enveloping Rudeus and Eris before rapidly expanding towards them. Acting quickly, Lilia grabbed Aisha, resulting in their teleportation together. After regaining consciousness, they found themselves submerged in an unfamiliar body of water. Lilia brought Aisha to the surface and they made their way to the nearest town. In the town, Lilia sought information about Roxy Magurdia's location within the palace from a guard. Unfortunately, Pax overheard their conversation and promptly threw them into a dungeon. Meanwhile, Rudeus found himself in surroundings reminiscent of an apartment, attempting to use his magic-proof fuel, leaving him perplexed. Suddenly, the 3rd Prince Pax, also known as the 7th in line to the throne, arrived in the dungeon and began interrogating Rudeus about a Rudeus statue discovered in his bag. This led to the 3rd Prince revealing a figure of Roxy crafted by Rudeus, sparking an extensive discussion due to their shared affinity for adult content. Simultaneously, Rudeus, Aisha, and Eris were apprehended by palace guards. Instead of imprisoning them, the guards enlisted their help in rescuing their own captive families, who were being held hostage by Pax himself. Rudeus entrusted Eris with watching over Aisha while he embarked on the mission to save the families. Zenoba, rumored to possess extraordinary strength from childhood incidents, forcefully dragged Pax out of bed and brought him to Rudeus's dungeon. With determination, Zenoba demanded Rudeus's release, prompting a hesitant but eventual compliance from Pax. Rudeus was overjoyed to reunite with Lilia, who embraced him from behind, expressing immense relief. Lilia disclosed her plan to train Aisha as Rudeus's future maid as she grew older and presented a small box containing Roxy's undergarments. Aisha approached Rudeus, expressing her desire to join him on his journeys and her aversion to serving her perverted elder brother. She speculated on becoming charming as she grew up, attempting to persuade Rudeus. However, Rudeus gently reminded her that such talk was inappropriate for a child. Nonetheless, he offered her his headband as a keepsake, suggesting that perhaps her brother cherished the undergarments similarly. As Lilia and Aisha bid farewell and departed, Aisha apologized for previously labeling Rudeus as a pervert and affectionately referred to him as Oni-chan. While surprised by Aisha's realization, they acknowledged her intelligence, which left Lilia feeling unsurprised by the revelation. Rudeus and Eris lay motionless on the ground while a furious gaze fixated on Dead End. Rudeus reflected on the unpredictability of life, acknowledging that unexpected events, such as being struck by a truck or, unfortunately, facing death can occur. A flashback took them back to a time when Eris, Rudeus, and Rudeus prepared for a snowy mountain journey. Just before setting off, Eris and Rudeus engaged in a friendly sparring match. Rudeus praised Eris, recognizing her as a true and honorable warrior. Overjoyed by his words, Eris asked Rudeus to pinch her, needing confirmation that it wasn't all just a dream. During their mountain expedition, they encountered a man with an angry expression, whom they briefly glimpsed during Turning Point 1 in Part 1, walking alongside a masked woman. Fear gripped Eris and Rudeus upon seeing them, their eyes locked on the imposing pair. In contrast, Rudeus remained unfazed by their presence and didn't tense up like his companions. As the man and woman passed by, Rudeus urgently whispered to Rudeus, instructing him to stay still and silent. Meanwhile, their boar companion unexpectedly leaped off the cliff's edge. Orsted turned around and observed the group, recognizing Rudeus and Rudeus Greyrat. However, he was unfamiliar with Rudeus. Foolishly, Rudeus asked Orsted to pause for a moment and introduced himself.
Rudeus, 絶対に動くな。
Hey, it's me, Goku!
Dumb ways to die.
The man doubted Rudeus's claim, stating that Paul Greyrat should only have 2 daughters and no sons. Confused by this, Rudeus inquired about the Mana Cataclysm, but Orsted claimed ignorance of the matter. As they prepared to part ways, Orsted suddenly questioned Rudeus about recognizing the man-god. Rudeus affirmed, mentioning the name occasionally appearing in his dreams. In an instant, Orsted launched an attack toward Rudeus, prompting Rudeus to intervene and protect him. Despite Rudeus' efforts, Orsted managed to incapacitate him and accused Rudeus of being a follower of Hitagami. He then stabbed Rudeus in the chest, causing him to fall to the ground seemingly lifeless.
Dumb ways to die.
Encountering Hitagami once again in this state, Rudeus conversed with him in a peculiar manner, expressing gratitude for being able to save Aisha and Lilia before his demise. He expressed thankfulness for the opportunity to have a second chance at life, acknowledging that not everyone is granted such an opportunity. Although he admitted to having regrets, Rudeus did not direct his anger at Hitagami as he did in his premature death. Wondering about his journey to the afterlife, Rudeus was advised by Hitagami to wait. Further insights into Rudeus and Orsted were revealed. Orsted was unveiled as the second most powerful among the 7 mentioned by Geese in previous episodes, even though he did not hold the top rank. Rudeus inquired if the technique god held the first rank, which was confirmed by Hitagami. Hitagami stated that if not for Orsted's curses, he would emerge as the victor in a fight. One of these curses was responsible for Eris and Rudeus freezing in fear when encountering Orsted. Additionally, Rudeus carried a trace of that curse within the spear he received from Lapalace, the demon who fought alongside the Spurds in the war. However, since meeting Rudeus, the influence of the curse had gradually diminished. Hitagami then informed Rudeus that he was not yet dead. Rudeus regained consciousness in Eris' embrace, finding her in tears. She informed him that Orsted returned after the woman named Nanahoshi said something significant. Orsted had cast a healing spell on Rudeus, bringing him back to life. Rudeus awoke from a terrifying dream to find Eris peacefully sleeping beside him, while Rudeus was already awake. He shared with Rudeus the words spoken by Hitagami regarding the gradual weakening of the curse on the Spurd. Rudeus explained that the curse would eventually disappear, and it had already begun to diminish. Overwhelmed with relief, Rudeus turned away from Rudeus and shed tears. The 3 of them then set off on horseback, embarking on their journey. During their travels, Rudeus and Eris stumbled upon Rudeus's abandoned hometown on the central continent. As they explored the deserted place, Rudeus was flooded with flashbacks from his past, reminiscing about his time spent there. Eventually, Rudeus made the decision to leave, expressing his gratitude to Rudeus for everything he had done for him and the Spurd tribe. He acknowledged Eris' strength and predicted that she would surpass him one day. Despite the emotions in his heart, Rudeus departed, leaving Rudeus feeling emotional. Soon after, as Eris and Rudeus resumed their journey, they encountered a camp filled with survivors from the central continent. Among them, Eris spotted Ghislaine and immediately embraced her, relieved to see her safe. However, their joy was short-lived as Alphonse delivered devastating news. Hilda and Lord Philip, Eris's beloved parents, had tragically passed away due to being teleported together. Furthermore, Eris learned that her grandfather, Lord Soros, had been executed for the crime of teleportation, and a new ruler had taken the throne, demanding her hand in marriage if she was found. Alphonse, prioritizing the kingdom's interests, was willing to sacrifice Eris, but Ghislaine vehemently opposed it and urged Eris to escape. In the next scene, Ghislaine pointed towards a board displaying the names of missing warriors, and Rudeus focused on the list, following Ghislaine's suggestion. He searched for the names of Zenith and Sylphiette, only to discover that they were still listed as missing and not reported as deceased anywhere. Later that night, while Rudeus slept, Eris entered his room, her sadness evident. Rudeus inquired about her plans following Alphonse's revelations, but Eris expressed her indifference. She desired to create a family with Rudeus, initiating a seductive encounter between them. Flashbacks of their time together flashed through their minds, culminating in a night of intimacy. The following morning, Rudeus woke up, filled with joy upon realizing he had lost his virginity. However, his happiness turned to shock when he discovered a note left by Eris. In the note, Eris revealed her decision to embark on a journey alongside Ghislaine, but she provided no details about their destination. Rudeus hurriedly sought answers from Alphonse, desperate to know their whereabouts, but Alphonse kept their location undisclosed. Rudeus was left disheartened by Eris's sudden departure, uncertain if and when he would see her again, and he couldn't help but cry. Eris woke up to find Ghislaine sitting near her, and they decided to continue their journey as it was already morning. Meanwhile, Rudeus was overwhelmed by depression and distressing memories of his troubled past. His parents had done everything they could to support him and take action against the bullies, even successfully getting them expelled. Rudeus's mother would often leave heartfelt notes with the meals she left outside his bedroom. In the next scene, Alphonse entered Rudeus's room and updated him on their current situation. They were running low on wood, food, and tents. Rudeus, still feeling defeated, remained in bed, unable to gather the strength to face the day. The narrative briefly shifted to Eris, who expressed her admiration for Rudeus to Ghislaine. She recognized his extraordinary nature and his consistent ability to remain in control during their journey. Eris also professed her love for Rudeus and vowed to become stronger so they could defeat the dragon god. The focus then shifted to Rudeus, who had rescued 3 travelers in need, which helped dispel their fear of him. A small smile appeared on Rudeus' face as he likely recalled how Rudeus had always been there to assist him. Meanwhile, Zenoba, the 3rd prince who had aided Rudeus in the fight against Pax alongside Geese, was shown traveling through an abandoned landscape. Tona remained at the Beastskin village, where conversations revolved around Rudeus and sword fighting, reflecting the impact he had made on their lives. Back to Rudeus, he was seen crying and deeply saddened by his past, and these memories overwhelmed him. The scene shifted briefly to Kishirika Kishirisu, one of Roxy's teammates, and Talhan engaging in a drinking competition. Despite her small and skinny frame, Kishirika effortlessly outperformed Talhan, leaving him astonished. However, trouble arose when others demanded payment for the drinks she had consumed. Luckily, Roxy Magurdia intervened, paying off the debts and using Kishirika's demon eye to locate anyone Roxy desired. Using Kishirika's ability, Roxy discovered the location of Aisha and Lilia, relieved to learn that they had been reunited. Seeking information about Zenith, Roxy found out that she couldn't get a close look but knew that Zenith was in the labyrinth city of Bigarito continent. Roxy then inquired about Rudeus, and Kishirika revealed that he was very sad and currently in the central continent, which caused Roxy to feel concerned for his well-being. She shared this information with her teammates, and they decided to rescue Zenith while believing that Rudeus would overcome the challenges he was facing. Meanwhile, Rudeus, still battling his depression, had flashbacks of Zenith and forced himself to get up and leave his tent in search of her. As he took those determined steps forward, a glimpse of Rudeus in his past life was shown, leaving his childhood bedroom and embarking on a journey to find Zenith. The next day, Rudy travels to the north in a carriage when a stranger woman, Suzanne, shows concern over his constant sighing. He ignores responding about his health when Suzanne's companion, Sarah, calls him out for being rude. This makes Rudy reveal he is looking for his mother, a victim of the mass teleportation in Fitoa. This embarrasses Sarah while Suzanne helps him with the roots. On his first night, he sulks about Eris but decides to focus on finding Zenith. The next day, he is mocked by senior adventurers for entering the guild as a kid. Their mockery turns to pity upon hearing that he is there to disband his party. As he tries to go for a dangerous job on his own, Suzanne walks up to him inviting him to join their party. Suzanne's companions also agree, even though Sarah shows reluctance. Rudy agrees by telling them he is a mage and supports the fighters. Suzanne deems it perfect, and they all decide to meet in the morning. The next morning he says his skill is to cast spells without chanting and gets to know the names of everyone. He hesitates, shaking hands with Suzanne, which she lets slide. On their way, Rudy is surprised about Suzanne not being their official leader. Sarah keeps throwing tantrums about Rudy, which makes Suzanne give her a reality check that they will not be with her forever, so she needs to know how to behave around others. Rudy realizes he is being used to teach Sarah a few things, but not like it's harming him anyway. He can see a reflection of Iris in Sarah. While deciding the combat strategy, it can be seen that thick-headed Sarah seems not to have grasped anything by the conversation before. She keeps countering Rudy rudely, which makes Suzanne tell her off once again. Being a brat, Sarah walks away. Timothy later apologizes on behalf of Sarah and praises Rudy's skills, but what use are those skills if he cannot bring back his loved ones? As the Luster Grizzlies appear, things are going smoothly by casting spells, but the situation turns alarming at the appearance of Black Grizzlies. Everyone tries to retreat, but Rudy's trauma kicks in at the worst moment, reminding him that there is nothing to live for, so he should just give up. Suzanne, being an angel, defends Rudy by putting her life at risk. She asks others to retreat, but they are already surrounded by Black and White Grizzlies. While everyone fights for their lives, Rudy is surprised that nobody is running as if they have a chance to do so. Mr. Too depressed to fight back. He feels an uneasy yet exciting feeling inside of him, so when Suzanne and Sarah are about to be attacked, he doesn't halt like before. The hunt successfully ends with a huge blow of fire cast by Rudy. While getting done with the process, Rudy is thanked for saving them, and he feels grateful to Suzanne for asking him to tag along. Even Sarah thanks Rudy for mustering up some courage. The adventurers back at the guild are not happy to have this stranger party doing something good and badmouth them. But Timothy knows how to shut the mouths of adults. Pour a drink into it. Announcing a round of drinks for everyone gets them accepted by all, giving a perfect end to the day. At night, tears start rolling down Rudy's face involuntarily, due to the guilt of forgetting how to live properly. He decides to use his past as motivation and move on by burning the bunch of hair of Eris he has been carrying. Rudy has been spending time working to make his name known around the land so the word can reach Zenith. He seems to be getting out of his mind due to loneliness for working out enough to name his muscles. The names Hercules and Hulk. Talk about dramatic acts. Rudy walks by a party, the leader of which Soul gives him a side eye. People have started knowing Rudy, calling him Quagmire, and helping him look for his mother. Even Sarah has toned down her rudeness and acts decently around him, enough to even invite him for another job together. Someone seems to be developing a crush here. Rudy hesitates since he didn't plan on working with the same people, which makes Sarah realize he doesn't want to accept. However, Rudy apologizes and agrees to go. In the Galgao ruins, Rudy finds his interest and can sense some familiarity with the statue. They look for snowdrakes when suddenly a bunch of them appear. The danger makes them retreat, while Rudy throws a few spells to divert the drakes. What he didn't expect was for the others to come to his rescue. Amidst the fight, the people hunting in the Ilbron cave also appear and fight alongside. After succeeding, Timothy steps forward to shake hands on the good work, only to get smacked in the face by Saul. Saul accuses them of stealing the job that is officially taken by them, but Rudy recalls that they were talking about working in Ilbron cave while they are at Galgao ruins. The interconnection between the two caused the misunderstanding, but Saul looks down upon them, leaving only a single snowdrake for them. Back at the guild, the Counter Arrow celebrates the survival alongside Rudy, while Sarah brags to Rudy about no other party saving him like they did. Suzanne decides to get her entertainment by embarrassing Sarah for rushing before everyone else to Rudy's rescue. Sarah is flustered and furiously denies it. A heavily drunk Soul walks up to them, showing his annoyance over the smiling nature of Timothy. But more than that, he seems to despise Rudy as if he can see through his gentle personality. He mocks Rudy's smile and eyes for looking down upon others. It can be seen that Rudy is affected, but he keeps his cool. The next day, Rudy finds some members of Counter Arrow who inform him about Mimir's death and Sarah getting lost. Rudy decides to go look for Sarah in the Trier Forest while seeking some inner satisfaction for himself by doing so. Killing the snow buffaloes and walking through the snow, he finds Sarah's earrings. He saves himself from an attack by a block of ice. When he notices Sarah being swallowed by a tree monster, burning its branches through his spells, he timely saves her. Sarah regains her consciousness in a cave, where Rudy informs her about all the details that lead to him being in front of her. Sarah fidgets while trying to show gratitude to him, but finally does so and smiles at him properly for the first time. As they return, the Counter Arrow greets them at the gate of the town, where Suzanne lashes out at Rudy for risking his life, but Sarah comes to his rescue. This is a perfect role reversal between Sarah and Suzanne. Rudy is happy that he got to do something in return for the Counter Arrow and leaves for home to get a peaceful sleep after a long time. The name Rudy the Quagmire is spreading across the land while he's getting close to land Sarah. He tells her about his teacher Roxy, who is the reason why Rudy is so strong. Sarah gets a bit jealous upon hearing another woman's name from him, but she changes the topic and invites him to buy a new dagger with her tomorrow. The next day, Sarah and Rudy enjoy their date and buy twinning daggers. Later that night, Sarah gets a little drunk and gives some green signals to Rudy. But since our guy is in love with Eris and is a loyal person, he decides to stick to one girl and move on from Eris to this beauty in front of him. However, knowing that he has the upper hand here, Rudy decides to play hard to get hard. Sarah tells him that she wants to talk more with him, so they should go to his room and do the rest of the talking. Rudy agrees, and they head to his room where Rudy sets the mood by turning on the candle. Including the candle, all three of them are turned on now. Their talking begins, and they get rid of every fabric capable of coming in between their talking. Rudy then notices something abnormal rising in his body. Mini Rudy is refusing to cooperate. Rudy starts to panic about the not rising issue. The candle has won the round as it is the only one turned on right now. Sarah decides to do what Rudy couldn't, get up. She hides the frustrated look on her face and leaves. Rudy heads to the bar and tries to drink this problem away. Just then, Saul enters and teases Rudy as always. Seeing him actually depressed, Saul hits Rudy until he's totally honest with him. Rudy then reveals everything, including the problem of his clock stuck on 6:30, Sarah acting like a father and leaving without saying anything, and Eris walking out of his life. Saul shares that Rudy should stop crying and look for a cure, so two drunk friends, in the middle of the night, head off to cleanse their souls. At the entertainment district, Rudy is accompanied by Elise, who already knows him through her little sister. No, Rudy only healed her injury. After some time, Rudy finally comes out of the room. Seeing him still down, Saul realizes what else is still down. Elise concludes that Rudy is afraid of women now and needs someone who would never hate him. The two of them drink all night while Saul shares the wisdom that he gathered through online educational videos and also clarifies that Sarah likes him a lot. On their way back, Rudy is too drunk to control his inner dog, so he reveals that Sarah doesn't have what he really wants and that their date was stupid. Unfortunately, the universe deals another fatal blow as Sarah is standing behind him, hearing everything. Rudy is sobered back with a nice slap, which is unfortunate as he could have been the one on the delivering end. She throws the dagger down and leaves. Rudy picks up the dagger with not so pure intentions, but Saul stops him from taking his life, and since Rudy has given up on his creepy smile and shown his true nature to him, he offers Rudy to join his party, which is headed to a large-scale labyrinth. Rudy agrees to go along. Meanwhile, this lady overhears Rudy's name and asks for more information. She makes the men an offer they can't refuse. On his journey with Saul's team, Rudy notices a pack of Luster Grizzlies heading towards them. Saul's team easily dominates them as the real Luster is among them. Just then, they realize that a red dragon was actually chasing the Grizzlies, and now the dragon is above them. However, Rudy uses his plot armor to crush the dragon with a huge boulder, just like his hopes of landing Sarah were crushed. Later that night, Rudy offers his thank you prayer in front of the holy pants, and just like that, days went by with both Rudy's fame and muscles growing. One day when he's eating alone, Elise approaches him saying that she has finally found him. If you don't remember, she's the girl with the highest snap score in this world. Her body count is even higher than One Piece's episode count or Eren's kill count. Elise reveals that she's Paul's ex-party member and a friend of Roxy. She then comes on to Rudy, but Rudy mentally laughs at her because he's no simple. Around 2 or 5 milliseconds later, Rudy caves in and goes for a kiss but gets blocked as Elise is more interested in the pendant as she only owns a similar Leaf Life keychain. She then reveals that Rudy's mother is alive and in the labyrinth city of Rappa. Since Zenith is doing well, Rudy decides to let the winter pass before embarking upon the year-long journey to Rappa. Paul and Roxy are also headed to that city. For the next few days, Rudy witnesses Elise's hobbies, and no matter how much he wants to be a part of them, he is unable to step up or get up. Soul too becomes a big fan of her. Upon inquiring, Elise tells Rudy the secret to her harem, which is paying them in exchange for not developing feelings for her. Some next level business. Later that night, she brings Rudy a letter from the vice principal of Renoa University of Magic, who invites him to the campus to further hone his skills as a special student, as he is a student of their alumni Roxy. The next day, Rudy talks to Conrad, one of Soul's party members, about it, who confirms that Renoa University gathers mage with potential, so when they grow famous, the university's fame increases. Rudy thinks about how he wanted to go to school with Sylphie, and wonders where she is right now. Paul will bring Zenith to Asura anyway, so Rudy should head to the university. Later that night, Rudy finally meets the Ghost Man after so long, and this smoke guy suggests going to Renoa University and investigating mass teleportation. He shares that mass teleportation would lead to the rise of Rudy's mass. Rudy agrees and then wakes up, only to find Elise in his bed. However, she's not the only one still sleeping in this bed. The next day he says goodbye to Sol and his party and sets out for the kingdom of Renoa. Rudy and Elenils finally reach the university where he is supposed to meet Genius. Rudy wonders why Elenils tagged along, but she answers that her interest in boys of her age being around this place is more understandable than her interest in studies. Genius asks Rudy to take a test to enroll in the university. The test is to compete against another talented silent caster they have in the university. Fitz, the other silent caster, is surprised to see Rudy, but he seems to not have recognized her. Being his usual self, he sucks up to Fitz like he'd do to anyone for being in their good books. In the mock duel, Rudy timely judges the attack Fitz is about to cast, and defeats her in one go with the defeat magic. The magic that even Fitz is unaware of. Rudy is satisfied until he realizes he publicly embarrassed an upperclassman, which goes against his usual people-pleasing nature. Wanting to cover it some way, Rudy rushes to help her and thanks her for letting him win. Fitz is too surprised to react for a moment, but takes his hand to stand up. Rudy wonders how her hands are so soft, unaware that the person he is interacting with is not a guy. This exceptional win grants him all the luxuries in the university. He doesn't have to pay any fee, he can live in the dorm, and can even skip classes. Oh, to have such an ideal case. During the assembly, Prince Ariel descends the stairs with her bodyguards, Luke and Fitz on either side, and speaks to everyone about the usual rules. No student is ever interested in rules and regulations, but if a pretty princess is narrating them, they might even memorize them. Walking into class, he is picked up by Zenoba, who calls Rudy his master. Rudy does recall him, but before their conversation, Linnea, the cat girl, shows her distaste towards Rudy. Rudy notices the bully attitude towards Zenoba, but if you think he'd stand up to her, you're wrong. He'd rather bow down to even statues that come his way. He establishes the superiority of the cat girls, Linnea and Persina, in front of him, boosting their ego even more. The last guy in class, Cliff, calls himself a magic genius, which is an embarrassing act, but why would Rudy ever try to disrespect anyone? In the library, Rudy picks books about mass teleportation and Fitoa when he meets Fitz. Fitz gets excited upon hearing he has been a victim and is currently looking for a missing friend. Rudy has no clue about what's going on in her mind. Rudy also gets to know he has some family link with Luke since they share the same surname, and he calls Rudy forgetful, as if they have met in the past. Walking back to the dorm, a white piece of clothing falls from a window above. Rudy catches it and stretches it for it to be turned in underwear. Cherry on top is when he gets accused of being a pervert, which causes a gorilla-like lady to jump from one of the windows and corner Rudy. There's no way Rudy would have survived even a single fist of the gorilla lady if it weren't for Fitz coming and telling her she dropped Princess's underwear while hanging it to dry. Fitz later heals his harm and apologizes for the commotion. Rudy shows his gratitude for the help, knowing not everyone does so casually. He decides to call her senpai, which makes her laugh, and mentions she'd never thought any situation would ever make him thank her. Fitz leaves without any explanation for this statement, while Rudy stands behind dumbfounded. Rudy has adopted a monotonous routine in his life at that university. He exercises, studies magic, practices figure making, which Zenoba is begging to be taught, and spends his free time looking around the books on mass teleportation. Rudy readily agrees to have Fitz sit beside him in the library, and gets to know she is also looking for someone she lost in the mass teleportation. Her request to investigate the matter together is accepted right away by him. When he shakes her hand, he gets a weird tingly feeling that he never thought he'd get from a boy. Walking back to the dorms, Rudy wonders how he has gotten closer to Fitz without even knowing her. She avoids the question behind her sunglasses and gives a poor excuse for being shy. When Rudy mentions she is casual to him but reserved to people who have been around her for longer. Rudy asks when she learned incantationless magic. Fitz laughs at his investigative mode and tells him her master who rescued her taught her. Being polite, Rudy expresses his desire to meet that master, making Fitz laugh at the irony. Rudy is baffled at her laugh, but what baffles him more is his inner turmoil, making him wonder if he swings the other way too. Zenoba has been begging Rudy to teach him how to sculpt figurines. Rudy stalled it as much as possible, and when he finally decided to do so, poor Zenoba couldn't get it. Rudy suggested doing it with hands rather than magic, in hopes of not hurting Zenoba, but turns out Zenoba's physical strength makes it impossible too. Rudy shares this dilemma with Fitz, who calls his talent exceptionless after failing to sculpt a figurine with magic. She suggests getting Zenoba a slave to do it for him. Rudy likes the idea, but has to take a direct hint from Fitz about her being free to ask her to tag along. Don't know whether Fitz needs to show herself as a girl or Rudy needs to get his signs, but the dynamic is currently chaotic. When going to buy a slave, Zenoba tries to act all manly and arrogant in front of Fitz, which makes Rudy push his knee and make him fall. He tells Zenoba to play nice, which makes him introduce himself decently. Attitude goes brr. The slave market is a really disturbing place with slaves of all types, sizes, genders, and physiques tied down as a display. Fitz feels overwhelmed, which makes Rudy tell her to give it time. Zenoba doesn't need warriors, so Rudy suggests getting dwarfs for their dexterity skill, and Fitz suggests getting a kid around 5 as it is easier to learn magic without incantation for the ones learning magic from scratch. They seek a young dwarf and find her in an even worse possible state. The manager drags the 6-year-old out of the cage and leaves. Rudy proceeds to talk to the girl in her language, since she doesn't know theirs. Seeing the despair and lack of will in her eyes, he asks if she wants to die and is genuinely willing to do so for her. However, the girl finally responds after a while, not wanting to die. Buying her, they have her eat all she wants and wonder what to name her. Zenoba wants to name her Julius on the account of his late brother, whom he accidentally killed due to not being able to control his strength. Since it's a guy's name, Rudy suggests Juliet, which is accepted by both Zenoba and the little girl. The girl calls herself Julie, and the journey to teach Julie incantationless magic to make sculptures begins now. The narration of Fitz's daily life is proof of her obsession with Rudy. A day starting with jogging is normal, but the thought behind it being that Rudy must exercise that way is the first sign. She looks up to Rudy because he already taught her whatever is being taught in the university, making it easier for her to pass. Her thoughts wander off to Rudy being a similar playboy as Luke, which makes her wonder if he'd do that after marriage too. She even gets sad about this random thought. Our girl's thought process is speeding too fast to even reach marriage, while the boy in question doesn't even know her gender. Sounds like a modern-day problem. What's even more ironic is that after this thought she realizes she might have feelings for him. Real smart. Julie has been surviving well with the guys. She proves to be a fast learner and has a sibling-like bond with Zenoba, while Rudy teaches her the magic. On another usual day, Zenoba is busy furiously playing with his figurines when Rudy inquires about the Roxy figurine he gave him. In a second, Zenoba's mood switches and he starts shaking with fear. Rudy can sense something wrong, so he asks Zenoba to bring the box. Zenoba pants and shakes in fear, while Rudy realizes that the figurine has been broken down into pieces. This gets him furious enough to make Zenoba cower in fear and Julie cry. Rudy feels like Zenoba belittled his master, but Zenoba tells him that the Doldia girls, Linnea and Persena, had broken it for him losing a duel against them in the first year. As Zenoba wails, Rudy's anger has already been shifted towards the catbrats. At the end of the next day, Rudy and Zenoba glare at Linnea and Persena, causing an argument about belittling each other between the two. Rudy finally gets under their skin by mocking how they cannot even speak without meowing in between. Being short-tempered, Linnea launches herself at Rudy, but he can judge her movements. Rudy is fast enough to tranquilize Persena and then slap Linnea into tranquilizing her. Flash who, we only know this mage. The two girls wake up tied in Rudy's room, not even realizing what his wrath is about. He shows them the figurine, telling them they insulted his goddess. He then proceeds to show them Roxy's panty, calling it sacred. Tied girls and a panty in his hand. Does he not realize how perverted he seems at the moment? However, even if the girls are scared of Rudy, they are still showing their stubborn and arrogant nature in between. Rudy announces wanting the figurine mended to attain forgiveness. It is Zenoba's mention that makes him realize he indeed can fix it on his own. Boy got so wild with anger that he forgot he could sculpt figurines with magic. Now he thinks of another punishment but is lost. Hence he seeks his master Fitz for it. Fitz is a little disturbed by his abduction of two girls but can see he didn't harm them anyway. The girls seem to despise Fitz for some reason which doesn't bother Fitz but angers Rudy even more. Fitz draws on their faces, creating a hideous look and asking them to wander like that for a day. If they listen to Rudy, she'll remove it, and if they don't, she knows the magic to make it permanent. As the two girls leave, Rudy gets to know that his master Ghislaine, whom he learned about their movements, is the aunt of Linnea. Fitz wanders for a while in the room and then lies on Rudy's bed. Rudy has the temptation to remove her glasses, but controls himself. Upon explicitly asking her to do so, she makes the excuse that she has been ordered to hide her face, and then leaves, making our boy wonder once again if he is attracted to the same gender. As Linnea and Rudy talk loudly in class, gloomy Cliff calls them out for disturbing him. Like their usual selves, Linnea insults him while Rudy apologizes. Later, Cliff notices a girl in a window, making him fall for her in love at first sight. Walking by the ground, Rudy notices some boys beating up a guy. He calls them out for ganging up on a guy, which makes them leave in annoyance. The bullied guy turns out to be Cliff, who is about to be rude again by telling him he didn't ask for help, but decides to go for a thank you. Finally, some sense into the kid. Too much of Cliff in an episode, as on another day, he approaches Rudy mentioning a crush on a girl. Rudy panics, thinking if he wants help sneaking a letter or wants Rudy to practice his confession. Our guy is panicking, as if he isn't contemplating his feelings for someone who he thinks is a guy. Cliff shows Rudy the girl, making Rudy finally realize why he approached him. The girl is Ellen Elise, and she is the reason Cliff got beaten up the other day, since the guys were saying Ellen Elise will sleep with every other guy. Not like it was a lie. Rudy approaches Fitz asking what she would suggest, since he doesn't want Cliff heartbroken. Fitz tells him not to meddle with their feelings and introduce them. What happens next is their matter and fate. Rudy calls Ellen Elise and introduces her to Cliff, mentioning his admiration for her. Cliff, being a gentleman, formally does it too. Ellen Elise takes Rudy to a side, questioning why he'd do that, since she cannot stick to a single guy due to her curse. Rudy mentions Cliff's genuine feelings and tells her to politely reject him and be as honest as possible. However, the next day, Rudy finds the two together as Cliff's honest feelings make Ellen Elise try this out. The fall season, being the proposal season, has potential suitors fight duels to have their proposals accepted. Linnea and Priscilla, being the princesses of their tribes, hide in their rooms during this time, not wanting to get directly involved in the drama. They had told Rudy about leaving the rest to him, which he doesn't get until later. A guy approaches Rudy asking him for a duel, making him panic that he isn't into guys. Boy, who are you even convincing at this point? As it turns out, the smart cats decide to announce whoever beats Rudy, the leader of their tribe, will get to marry them. The boy with a proposal for Priscilla cannot even survive a single blow from Rudy. Later, there is a line awaiting Rudy which makes Fitz wonder what this is about. After listening to the whole story, she mentions there being a girl too. The excitement on Rudy's face makes her sad. As the two walk out, they find all the guys defeated by a 6-armed monster. The monster is the Demon King, Batagati, who is also the fiancé of Kishirika. He was here to challenge him after her mention of Rudy. Fitz rushes to get his staff, while Rudy mentions having the demon eye from Krishika but not being strong enough to defeat Batagati. Batagati laughs and decides if Rudy's strongest blow manages to harm Batagati, he will accept his defeat. Rudy uses his mana to create a drill-like attack which throws Batty off. This scares everyone, but Batty rises back, collecting and joining his tore-off body parts while announcing Rudy's win. He, however, takes his turn too, knocking Rudy out with his punch. Rudy later lies tired of the eventful day, but is glad he won't be seeing Batty again. Oh, he couldn't be more wrong. The next day, a loud commotion in his class results in the dramatic appearance of Batty Gotti in the university's uniform. Ariel can see Fitz stealing glances at Rudy every chance she gets, and inquires why she won't tell him she is Sylphie. She groans, dreading the thought that he might have forgotten her. Ariel decides to let her do what she deems better. The more Rudy studies the mass teleportation, the more it seems like a summoning rather than a natural disaster. Explaining this to Fitz makes her a little lost, but she refers him to Silent 7-Star, who is a summoning expert and might be able to help them. Silent has a name around the university, but Rudy has never seen her. As the two walk into Silent's room, the girl turns around with a white mask on her face. This triggers some traumatic memories of Rudy, who starts running and screaming while getting visuals of his past again. He finds it hard to breathe and blacks out as Silent approaches him. As he wakes up with Fitz near him, he is relieved that it was all a nightmare, only that it wasn't. He panics again, seeing Silent, who is currently sitting on a ladder, and questioning why he is scared of her when she saves him. Rudy simply fears Orsted being around too, but Silent tells him he isn't coming after him yet. Upon Fitz's confusion, Silent tells her that she doesn't know Rudy but met him once when the dragon god tried to kill him. Silent directs herself to Rudy, wanting him to respond to 3 questions. Truthfully, she starts talking in Japanese, questioning if he knows the language, and gives him the names of 2 people, asking if he knows them or is one of them. Rudy knows Japanese but is unaware of the other 2. The girl removes her mask, making Rudy realize he saw her once before his reincarnation, when she was about to get hit by a truck. The girl introduced herself as Shizuka, and told him that she finally had someone she could work with to go back home. Rudy tells her that he doesn't want to go back home since he was born here and has friends and family here now. Shizuka understands his case, since unlike him, she was teleported here right before the truck hit her, and wants to go back to her friends and family. While Fitz sits there lost, Shizuka explains how she was dumped in the Asura kingdom when Orsted took her in his protection. Orsted thought of Rudy as an enemy, which is why he killed him, but upon Shizuka's request, brought him back to life. She also tells him it seems like she got summoned into this world, but she cannot do much to investigate it, as being foreign characters to this world. Anything they do to manipulate history could result in their existence being erased. She has been working on her case, but her lack of mana causes issues for her. She collects mana from everything that carries it to protect herself. After sharing her story, she wants Rudy to help him in her experimentations with his mana. Rudy accepts it. Now that it's settled, they explain everything to Fitz. Shizuka also mentions how the mass teleportation happened the same day as her summoning, so there might be a link. This results in Fitz assuming she did that and lashing out on her. But Rudy and Shizuka clear out that Shizuka didn't have any control over it. Fitz apologizes for her behavior. Shizuka doesn't know how it happened, while Man God blames Orsted, who is silent on this matter. She seems to have a hint of what could have triggered it, and their help to prove it once her experimentation succeeds. After they leave, Rudy tells Fitz he trusts Shizuka even though she doesn't give off a positive vibe. Fitz decides to go with Rudy's gut feeling. Fitz has finally established how strongly she feels about Rudy, but it is saddening for her that Rudy only sees her as a guy. Moreover, Rudy has been spending excessive time working with Shizuka and not giving her much time. Once again we go through the boring routine of Rudy. The only changes include the presence of Body during his workouts and lunches. Linnea and Persena have a fondness for him, while Cliff has been learning about curses from him to help Elenalise. In the evening he goes to Shizuka to help in her experimentation, where all he has to do is pour mana into the circles she makes. So far her tests are failing, but she is making sure to not cause another catastrophe while trying to summon someone from her world. She believes it will be easier to send someone back if she succeeds in summoning them. Rudy also wants to learn the summoning magic, but she will only teach him one as she leaves, while the rest of her stuff will automatically belong to him later. She also throws a book at Rudy asking him to research on his own, which makes quite sense. At night he gives Julie magic lessons while he notices the lack of Fitz in her daily routine these days. Soldet invites Rudy to meet for old time's sake since he is around. Rudy, Elenalise and Cliff go to meet him, but Soldet gets called to another meeting. Elenalise decides to give Cliff a glimpse of the life of adventurers and leave. They seem to be minding the third wheeling of Rudy and even respond offended when he tells them to make sure Cliff is safe. Walking back, Rudy finds Fitz and Luke and tries to talk to Fitz, only to find her tense and avoiding him. Luke covers Fitz, telling Rudy she isn't allowed to talk on duty. Rudy pretends to understand while being suspicious if they are on a date. He then leaves hurt that Fitz didn't say a single word to him. Walking into the library, Rudy walks up to Fitz and questions why she ignored him. Fitz gives the same excuse that she can't talk on duty due to her childish voice. Rudy inquires about not seeing Ariel there, making Fitz respond that she was in a shop nearby. Rudy figures he met Ariel disguised as Fitz and lets it go. He is simply glad that Fitz doesn't hate him, which makes her laugh at his unusual worry. Later, Rudy cannot think of anything other than Fitz, her smile, habits, scent and attitude. He has accepted he is in love with a man, but since he strongly feels attracted to girls, he feels like maybe he is mistaken about Fitz being a guy. He tries to inquire about her from the vice principal, who refuses to give information about her and says Fitz is a male. Rudy walks out, seeing that the vice principal got tense over the topic of Fitz. Once again they meet in the library, while Rudy is already thinking about Fitz. Since he was zoned out, he gets a little too surprised upon seeing her and falls. Fitz, who was trying to help, falls on top of him, and in the most absurd way possible, Rudy gets to know Fitz is a girl while she runs away. Now that Rudy knows Fitz is a girl, he thinks about her even more strongly. However, he does not intend to create any issue with her or reveal her identity. He finds Luke glaring at him and asking about Fitz, to which Rudy says he knows nothing. Luke knows he is feigning ignorance and wonders why he'd do that. Rudy tells him he doesn't want to trouble them and is scared to mess with them. Ariel summons Fitz, asking her to gather some courage and reveal her true identity to Rudy, since she has been hearing about the two and noticing them. She tells Fitz that she has helped her a lot, and now Ariel wants to help her achieve what she wants. Ariel relieves her that it won't count as betrayal, and they all start wondering how to do so. Fitz is scared that Rudy might not have any memory of her, so they decide to recreate some core memory that would help Rudy recall Sylphie, aka Fitz. Fitz shares a memory about Rudy saving her from being bullied about her hair color. But an even stronger memory is Rudy thinking she was a boy at first, and stripping her forcefully one day in the bath to realize she is a girl. This is a satisfactory memory that they are ironically reliving already. Ariel makes the mistake of asking Fitz what kind of relationship she wants with Rudy, so they have to hear about her fantasy up until marriage and kids with Rudy. Ariel then tells her to not back out due to nerves, since this is her only chance to confess to Rudy. Fitz walks up to Rudy, explaining how Ariel wants to prove to someone that her bodyguards are strong by making them fetch a flower found deep within the forest of Hale with a very small party. She coaxes Rudy into going with her. On their way, she takes Rudy's staff with an excuse of wanting to see it, and then uses it to bring clouds and make them pour before Rudy can drive them away. They reside in a cave for a while, where Rudy lights a fire and takes off his clothes to dry them. Seeing Fitz shiver, he asks her to do the same and offers to leave if she isn't comfortable. Fitz stops him, wanting him to help her do so. What happens next is a repeat of their memory, with Rudy not only recognizing she is a girl but also recognizing who this girl is. He asks if she goes by the name of Sylphiet, making her tear up and hug him. Rudy smiles fondly at her same crybaby nature as in childhood, while Sylphie expresses how she has been in love with him forever and likes him even more than before now. She expresses her wish to be with him forever. Rudy is shocked and a bit disappointed in himself for not realizing sooner. He kept thinking about how Fritz was making him drive on the wrong side, but never thought of how he reminded him of Sylphie. To seize this chance, he immediately tells her that he loves her, and then gets down to business. However, the business in his underwear is still down, so he can't get down to business. He apologizes to Sylphie for embarrassing her, but she doesn't care much about it, and tells him to worry not. They start talking, and Sylphie shares how everything she did up till now was so she could become worthy of Rudy's praise. All she strived for was to become strong enough to help and protect Rudy. While they spend the night together, Rudy's Wi-Fi keeps getting connected and disconnected, but for now he's happy that he's at least getting some signals now. The next day, Sylphie explains everything to Luke and Ariel, to which Ariel laughs at first, but Luke tells her that sometimes the pressure can take down a man. He then heads out to bring something for Sylphie, while Ariel teaches Sylphie the tips and tricks of laying down the perfect thirst trap. Luke comes back and tells Sylphie that she doesn't have the measurements that usually the Greyrats require. Being a Greyrat himself, he claims that he feels nothing for Sylphie, which is why he wants to give her this aphrodisiac that can turn a human being into a gorilla in bed. Being rare, Luke was saving it for financial emergencies, but he wants Sylphie to use it and cure Rudy. However, he warns Sylphie that her first driving experience will not be as smooth as she would have wanted. Ariel also gives her the money she has so Sylphie can buy something pretty for the thirst traps. Sylphie accepts the help and thanks both of them. Later that night, Sylphie heads into Rudy's room where they have a drink together, and then Sylphie gives him the aphrodisiac. She even takes a sip herself to keep up with the face. The drug starts to kick in as both of them feel the heat of the moment. Rudy throws Sylphie on the bed and the scene cuts off. The next morning, Rudy wakes up with Sylphie not present in the room and wonders how it went last night. He checks the sheets and finds an undeniable proof that wasn't very necessary to be shown. Sylphie walks into the room with a smile, so Rudy hugs her and tests himself again. Turns out, Sylphie is the girl who loves him no matter what. So Rudy cries as he thanks Sylphie for curing him after 3 long years. Rudy then thanks Ariel and Luke, to which Ariel asks for permission to use his name for personal gains. Rudy agrees, and she then asks what he plans to do with Sylphie. Rudy straight up proposes to marry Sylphie, so they can head out to look for his family together. Sylphie agrees to the proposal, and Ariel relieves Sylphie of her duties as Fritz, so she can carry on as Mrs. Rudy Greyrat. That concludes the anime recap. As always, if you enjoyed, let me know down below and I'm out.